on our behalf without our consultation, and it is the biggest tax, even bigger than the cost of World War II, being foisted on us, which of course is going to hamper our human development. And we're not being discussed, we're being given this global warming phenomenon as an excuse. So I believe it's important for people to look at the science and to hear the risk that the politicians are giving us, and I feel I've done that, and I've tried to do it in the most bipartisan way I could in my movie. So that's the message of the movie.
What effect would you hope the film has in the very near future?
Well, I've shown the film to colleagues and to friends, and the best I can hope for is what, in general, I've been very happy that, and I've seen it, is that people open their minds to the idea that it may not be true. That's all I can ask for. Just open your mind, and then you can make your decision in your own way.
But let's say a great number of people around the world suddenly start to open their eyes to see the agendas that are at work in the world today. Could you see any negative outfall from the movie?
Negative outfall from the movie? Well, by opening people's minds, probably not. I think opening people's minds is generally a good thing. Unless you're scared that having free thought is a bad thing and that people need to be herded like sheep, then yes, then there's a problem.
Absolutely, I agree. I was thinking more in terms of the kind of conflicts that people might be faced with in terms of more draconian measures. As we've seen what happens to demonstrators at climate conferences very often, they're cordoned off, they're water hosed, they're bashed on the head. This could have a very negative feedback on you, personally, because you started the information, it got a lot of people questioning. So do you feel a sense of responsibility for the information to that extent or not?
Well, I'm just one vehicle. There is actually a lot of vehicles saying the same thing. What I tried to do was, there's a huge amount of evidence out there, but really it's in a scientific, highfalutin form. I've just tried to translate it to, I say, the intelligent layman's form. That's what I tried to do. I've tried to translate the huge amount of science and politics that are going on without our general knowledge, and to be a journalist and to give it to a palatable form. And there can be risks involved. I mean, what was crazy going on in Copenhagen were I have friends who are, extreme environmentalists, shall we call, Greenpeace friends. They were being water cannoned at a conference which is what was meant to be proponing their ideas, which is craziness. Someone like Lord Monckton was knocked out, even though he was a delegate there.
He was knocked out?
Yeah, he was knocked out by the same police. So there was draconian measures on both sides of the wall, and it was craziness. I mean, I was just, what were the police doing? I thought Denmark was trying to say, look at us. This is Denmark and free talk, and this is going to be a world accord. And then you go around hitting both sides of the party, Yeah.
Well, I think that's indicative of just how serious the situation is, how serious the topic is, which is why it's all the more important to have heretical people around standing up for some ideas. And I think the word in the old Hindu mythology was upasaya, which is skillful means. You always have to use some kind of skillful means. If you have any information that you think of as valuable to people, then you have to get it to the people. And then it's up to the people to use that information their own way. You can't be held responsible from that point on. Obviously not. The very fact that this can happen in an interconnected world with an internet, that you can have this level of force, and that's the only word you can use here is force. People are being forced to believe something that is not true. Then it's obvious that it's requiring of the free-thinking individual to consider maybe we can evolve through this. I see it as a very dark time, actually, in our history.
Well, it could be a dark time. I'm actually very optimistic. I think it's a great time of enlightenment, funnily enough, because through this process, I have seen with stuff that I've been ambivalent throughout my life, because I really don't believe what newspapers tell me. And I first learned that when I lived in Uganda, and you can hear about the Coney rebels up in the north terrorizing the country. In actual fact, there are a couple hundred people.
Yeah.
The country survives quite well, thank you very much. Wherever the world's press centers on these rebels. And ever since then, when I was teaching there, when I was 19 years old, I've been very, very skeptical of what the papers have to say. And this has been the whole of history, though. So we read these history books, and I get more and more skeptical because, of course, the winners write the history books. And I can see how much falsification can occur. And I don't think this is new. That's why I'm optimistic. I think this has always been there.
Always.
It's always been there.
Always been
But, however, through the internet, we have actually been able to break down this particular huge, in my opinion, falsification because of the internet. So I actually am optimistic because we are creating these devices which are not being controlled by governments or media barons. They're circumventing the media barons, and they're individuals who are having free thought, and they're voicing their opinions, and it's being heard. Whereas before, they never had that vehicle to do that. So I'm actually optimistic.
No, I'm very optimistic
this
too.
is a good thing.
I'm very optimistic too. However, I think that there's going to be much more of a backlash than we may have imagined when these heretical ideas get out there, because the stakes are so high that many very powerful economic measures and plans have already been put into motion.
Absolutely. And many companies who you'd think would disagree with it are already locked in, like General Motors. They have all their, eco cars coming out. They have hundreds of millions of dollars, if not more than that. They have such a diversified portfolio that they have a massive vested interest in it going ahead. So it is a huge thing. And for it to collapse suddenly would be a bad thing. Any collapse, even if it's a bubble, and even if I believe the bubble is based on a falsification, I wouldn't want to see the bubble to burst, but it might have to. But
actually, when I was on the plane, there were the 7 leading electronic maker giants in Japan, led by Panasonic and Toshiba. 7 of them made fairly big profits in the last year through one word: echo.
Yes.
Their new screens, Panasonic screens, are all based on this is an ecologically viable, good product. And it was only the use of that whole idea of its eco, it's good for the environment, it's not going to cause any more global warming, that was making them their profits in the last year. Clearly. So, of course, Japan is not going to suddenly start listening to heretics when its major corporations, which are producing jobs for a great many people, are suddenly in the black, and they were in the red last year.
Any jobs created out of taxation are jobs not worth having. It's back to the communist 100% employment policy. Creating jobs is great, and if they happen to be in a green sector, fine. But the whole idea with Barack Obama's pushing is we should have emissions trading because we're going to provide those green jobs. Yes, but you're going to lose a huge number more from that policy. Now, like for instance, they did a big study in Spain, which has emissions trading, and they have shown, now that they have all these green jobs being made, that for every green job being created, 2.2 jobs are being lost.
Who would lose jobs based on green jobs being created? What kind of people?
Anything that is hampering business. So a green job, we said, we have to hire a green accountant to measure our carbon production. That is actually a tax. That is something you're forcing on a company, which is making them less efficient than the person in Bolivia, the same company that hasn't got to pay for a green accountant. That's the sort of carry-on. So you're creating a job, you're creating inefficiencies. Spain has the highest unemployment in Europe.
Oh, really?
You see long lines outside unemployment offices across Spain. A growing group of Spaniards waiting patiently, trying anything that might lead to a job.
Spain is a major EU economy, and 4.6 million people are out of work here.
I'll give you another example. I just heard that Ofgem, the regulator of energy in Britain, which had, as far as I was concerned, one of the world's leading energy sectors, and its market was seen as one of the most highly evolved in other countries who were going to copy the British example. Now they're saying they're going to have to nationalize the energy industry again because the cost is going through the roof. Why is cost going through the roof? Because there isn't enough supply. Why is there enough supply? Because of the emissions trading, they're not making any coal power stations. And because nuclear perhaps could fill a gap, but nuclear is so controversial, can't make enough nuclear power stations. Generally it would be filled by coal power stations. They're not being made. And the gas prices are being controlled by, mostly by Putin, I guess. So we're beholden to to outside influences, sovereign risk of our gas prices. We're not making coal, and they're saying, oh well, it's going to cost £2,000 a year to heat your house, which is absolutely ridiculous. It should be cheap as chips, and it would be cheap as chips if we didn't have an emissions trading scheme, which is a massive bureaucracy controlling the environment of the economic environment and preventing the natural development and investment that businesses would make more coal power stations if they were allowed to. Mm-hmm. But if you're going to say to them, we're going to whack on $10, $20, $30, $100 per megawatt or a ton or whatever you want to call it, then they're not doing it. There's no investment occurring, and then the system is collapsing. And then the government says, oh,